step up there to the podium. Let me call this meeting to order of the House Regulated Industries Committee. For the bills that we don't finish today, we'll be doing them tomorrow at whatever time Jan gets us a meeting room. All right. $4.12. No. $6.45.
Yes, sir, that's me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate your time today. House Bill 645 is simply a cleanup bill from House Bill 324 that we passed overwhelmingly and the governor signed into law in 2018. I'm happy to walk you through the bill. It's some technical changes, some legal changes that gives cover what the Attorney General's office and the Department of Law had asked for. So I'm happy to walk through and tell you exactly what that is. What I want to do first is I want to go back to House Bill 324, which we passed in 2018. I want to read that this is the current law. I want to read line 176 on page 6. It says product means low THC oil delivered through an oil, tincture, transdermal patch, lotion, or capsule, except as prohibited by Code Section 1612-234, but not including food products infused with low THC, including but not limited to cookies, candies, or edibles. Okay, so that's what products meant. However, the Attorney General's office wanted us to put into the code section low THC oil and products. I'm going to trust them with that. They feel like that was the clear legal definition that needed to be in there. But I just wanted to read to you what products meant. There's no sneaking in of any other thing. This is exactly what we passed that is defined by products. Now, that's the majority of this bill in the pages. So if you'll go through the bill, if you have it in front of you, line 1, line 2 is a and products we're just adding. Line 3 is a and products. We just had to add it all throughout the code section where it says low THC oil. Line 4, and products. Now, one of the changes, the first policy change here is going to be at line 103, where it says to review new treatment and delivery methods for low THC oil and products that may result from medical research and are not otherwise inconsistent with this article, and recommend statutory changes to the General Assembly to authorize such treatment and delivery methods and products. What that simply says is that the commission that was appointed by the Lieutenant Governor, the governor, and the speaker, that they can review new treatment and delivery methods. They can simply review them, and then they can recommend to the General Assembly those changes. They can't just enact that change. They can review what other states are doing. They can review what medical research is bringing forward, and they can review it and make a recommendation. We do not have to act on that recommendation. Otherwise, we can act on that recommendation. If you'll go down to line 112, if you'll recall, 324, we allowed our 2 state charter universities, land grant universities, University of Georgia and Fort Valley State. We said shall apply for a NIDA designation, that's the National Institute of Drug Abuse, so that they can hold their licenses. We have 2 university licenses. Well, I understand they had some hesitancy, and so simply we're removing the shall. And we're saying if they ever want to apply for it, those 2 licenses are set aside for them, but we're removing the mandate. If you guys don't want to apply for it, that's fine. That's up to y'all. So it just says upon request by the University System of Georgia. Okay. This one here, page 6, is an and products. Here's another line 152, line 153. This just simply removes the mandate. Again, I'll go back to lines 1, House Bill 324, line 161, where it says, what talks about dispensaries. Right now, the current law says that the only dispensary in the state is an independent private pharmacy. It's the only place that can dispense it. We also gave the power to the commission to create dispensing licenses. This, I am on 150, I'm sorry, 152, 153. That's of the current, that's of the bill I'm presenting. I've gone back to just cite House Bill 324, says that we gave the State Board of Pharmacy rulemaking authority to create rules for pharmacies on dispensing, and we gave rulemaking authority to the commission to create rules, 2 separate times. We're simply removing the mandate and saying, if a private pharmacy comes forward and says, we want to dispense this, then at that time, the State Board of Pharmacy would have to promulgate rules for those individuals. But if none come forward, they don't need to do any rules because there aren't going to be any dispensing. All right. On line 164, you're going to see it says, we're adding, in accordance with the requirements contained in subsection, no later than 6 months after the award of a Class 1 and Class 2 production license, the commission shall issue such production licensee a sufficient number of retail dispensing licenses to make its products available to registered patients throughout the state. The problem that we've run into, ladies and gentlemen, these people are dropping a lot of money. It's a $25,000 non-refundable application fee for a Class 1. It's a $5,000 non-refundable application fee for a Class 2. They then have to show financial security with their bonds and the capabilities. Once they are awarded the license, they still don't have a place to dispense the oil. They've got a timeline of 12 months to start making that. That's what we've given them. But right now, if no independent pharmacies come forward, and the commission, which as it stands right now, has not promulgated rules and regulations for dispensing licenses, they can be at that 12-month timeline, but there's nowhere to dispense it. So we're simply saying no later than 6 months. The commission has to award these 6 licensees a reasonable number of dispensing capability around the state so that the product can be out there. Okay. Okay, section 6. Again, I'm going to revert back to House Bill 324. I want to read you something. Okay, sorry about that. It says on line 334 of the current law, House Bill 324, the General Assembly shall establish a medical cannabis commission oversight committee with 2 members appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and 2 members appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Any member of the Medical Cannabis Commission Oversight Committee shall be permitted to inspect any production facility upon request and after reasonable notice is provided to the production facility. This oversight committee has not yet been appointed. So all we're doing in section 6 is just giving them a little bit more responsibility by simply saying the commission shall promptly provide any documentation. So if this oversight committee says, well, we want some documentation, it's not, as long as this oversight committee is not sharing it, the commission shall give it to them. Now, this can be whoever the speaker and whoever Lieutenant Governor appoints. It's 4 members. On the other side, it says that the oversight committee shall recommend to the commission a process and plan for providing accredited lab testing of products produced by licensees and for labeling of such products. I'm reading from lines 225 through 226, 7, 8, and 9. The commission shall consider recommendations of the oversight committee in adopting their policies, procedures, and regulations regarding such testing and labeling. So this isn't a mandate. This oversight committee, they're just simply offering some recommendations. The commission shall consider them as they go forth when promulgating rules and regulations. And it says that the oversight committee, lines 230 to 234, may regularly seek input from patients and physicians as to the availability and quality of products produced pursuant to this chapter. and recommend to the commission changes to policies, procedures, and regulations to improve availability and quality. And the commission shall consider these recommendations, but it's not a mandate that they have to implement them. Okay. Line 11 is an and products or products. Lines 12, same thing. I'm sorry, page. I'm sorry, Bruce. Page. So let me go back and for the record, page 11, page 12 is the and products. No drastic changes on there. Here's something the commission has asked for as well. On line 319, sufficient documentation to prove that $1.5 million cash bond or for any licenses that are applied for on or after July 1, 2021, other comparable surety as determined by the commission. So it's the commission's finding a hard time with, we had 70 applicants. So the commission is trying to tell us, give us something else that we can determine, because right now there's no bank that these folks can come and show us that they've got these bonds and they've got, that we need to be able to look at other assets and other forms of surety. The commission has asked for that when reviewing licensees. You sure can, Bruce. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You can. Go right ahead.
Okay. Just
I'm sorry.
on that line 320.
Yes, sir.
When you're saying comparable surety, it's not clarifying that it's still 1.5 million. When you say comparable surety, is it like a cash back letter of credit, or is it?
I could say it would, well, that like it says in the bill, determined by the commission. I believe it could be any number of things, but if it would please the committee to have a definitive that says 1.5 million in cash or 1.5 million in another state's reserve to be able to show.
And I won't belabor it, but another
Yeah.
quick question. Are you saying that right now, as it stands now, that no surety companies, which are completely different financial institutions than banks, no surety companies are willing to issue surety bonds? Is that what I
In the state of
understood you to say?
Georgia?
In the state of Georgia?
I would have to defer to the commission on that.
Okay. Just asking.
No worries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't ask any more questions.
That's all right. That's quite all right.
We're striking on page 14, we're striking lines 338 through 341. We're going to be adding that back. We're going to add that into section 314. I'm sorry, section 14, just Department of Law, things like that, that they said just with different places in the code section that needed to match up. We will get to that at section 14. On page 15, this is a simple add. Spoke to the credit unions. They requested to be added into the bill. So on lines 354, and shall maintain a bank account with a bank or credit union, they simply added it in there. The same lines 395 and 396 is the same thing that Bruce was questioning, except it's for the class 2. Same strike from 414 to 417, which will be seen in section 14. Page 18 is an and products page that we simply added and products, as is page 19, low THC oil and products. 489, this is what was voted on. Essentially, it's the same thing we voted on this morning, allowing for local rule, starting on lines 489, notwithstanding the provisions of this code section, local governments may, via use of existing zoning powers, otherwise provided by law, allow dispensing licenses only to locate in places other than those provided in this subsection, so long as such modification is needed to allow retail outlets to be established to service registered patients residing in such local jurisdiction. So it simply says allowing the locals to use their existing zoning laws if they've got a collective of patients on the registry, that a dispensary can be located in that area to serve those patients eligible and listed on the registry. If we'll move down on that same page, page 20, 505, line 505 is where I'm reading from. The GBI asked to be removed, and they wanted their responsibility not for ensuring, but for investigating any alleged criminal activities related to the activities of licenses, and shall work with the commission and the Georgia Composite Medical Board to develop procedures to ensure that all activities of licensees are conducted in accordance with this part of the law. That was an ask from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation that they wanted to not be the sole insurers of the policy making, but just simply they wanted to investigate if there had been a crime committed. We added on line 510, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, that's in likes to the previous page. The commission and the Georgia Composite Medical Board shall jointly establish these procedures. Below that is another and products. And then section 14, as I said, this is where we've put in the two previous sections we struck. After issuance of 2 Class 1s, after they've issued their 2 Class 1s and their 4 Class 2s, should one of these companies, for some reason or another, not be able to maintain the license, foreclose, go bankrupt, whatever it may be, this allows the commission to use their discretion in issuing license to fulfill those spots. Okay. On 581, and just for the committee's knowledge, I am working with the Medical Association of Georgia. They haven't given an opinion on the bill as of yet. They are reviewing the bill. However, MAG has, Medical Association of Georgia, has created its own internal cannabis review committee with their docs that I've been working with. So I'll be looking forward to getting their follow-up discussion after reviewing the bill as well. But this is something on 581. No physician who presently or during the period of such business relationship certifies individuals to the commission pursuant. You can't work for a company and yet also be registered as a referring doctor to get people on the commission. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand that? Okay, I'm going to move forward. Line 24, page 24 is an and products page as well. 25 is an and products. We had to add that anytime it said low THC oil. Line 651, this is something that in dealing with how to appropriate to this commission, I've talked to the chairman on this particular appropriation subcommittee. He's got to be able to understand how to do this. Appropriations have got to be able to understand. Line 651, an employee, contractor, or agent of a licensee with proper identification associated with the production, manufacture, distribution, transport, or sale of low THC oil or products in accordance with this article. We got to be very clear on who an employee who is transporting, doing a home, if you've got a homebound patient, they cannot get to a dispensary, that this individual who is certified, has a designation, is going to that location to drop off this product to an eligible patient, that they are not going to be subject to arrest, that they have the protection that the company has. That's right here. Line 27. I'm sorry, page. Thank you, Walensky. You and Bruce are very kind to me today. All right. And this is the finality of it. This is something that I was very, very happy about. This deals with the 2 land-grant universities. We don't want to push them. I mean, I understand there is some concerns on federal dollars. I understand if they want it, let them decide, but we don't need to push it on them. What this says is the commission shall issue permits for colleges and universities located within the state of Georgia to possess limited quantities of low THC oil and products for the purposes of conducting medical research via a bona fide partnership with a Class 1 or Class 2 licensee. I can tell you firsthand experience. about 3 months ago, I went to Clark Atlanta University and rolled out the red carpet. They gave me a full tour of the university, and they want to participate. They do not want to grow on their campus, but they are a premier leader in prostate cancer research here in the Southeast. And I believe after their new facility renovations are taken care of and finalized, that nationwide, prostate cancer has a 100% recovery rate or cure rate if caught early. They are simply saying, can we have a partnership with one of the 6 licensees to simply have some product in our lab so that we can test it and then report back to the licensee? This is what our test results found in relationship to prostate cancer. Now, that's the tour that I took specifically. I saw their facilities. I spoke to their doctors. They are very serious about this. However, I've heard from folks regarding Georgia Southern University, Payne College in Augusta, Morehouse, Spelman. You've got schools around this state that have simply expressed an interest on research. They do not want to grow it on their campus. And if they're going to do it, they have to have a legitimate partnership with a licensee, not some other group, not some other entity, but with a licensee here in Georgia, that they have a legitimate partnership. And the bill states, if you go on through line 703, all the way down to 722, there are some pretty stringent rules and regulations on what they can have on their campus. When the research is done, they have to return everything. So it's pretty laid out. That's simply what the cleanup does. And if we've been asking for 5-6 years, even when Representative Peake was here, what do the doctors say? What does the medical research say? Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a point in our state to where our Medical Association of Georgia, our gold standard in medicine, has formed its own committee on this. We have research universities and schools here in our state that want to research this and provide information back. This is simply what the bill does. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
All right. I didn't realize this was going to take all afternoon.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Please forgive me.
To number 4. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Gravely, for this amazing bill. I always hold it dear in my heart that I bought the first movie ticket to your movie back in Of the Child. I forgot her
Oh,
name.
yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I know. All right. A few quick questions. Page 8, lines 171 through 173,
Yes.
or actually, line 174. Medically fragile, is the intent there that a doctor will diagnose somebody as medically fragile? Is that how that would occur?
Well, I mean, the definition, a doctor's definition of medically fragile.
Okay.
Whether it be that individual can't travel, may need assistance traveling, or may need someone to come pick them up and take them to and from.
Okay. And then line 177, what is normal understanding of reasonable driving distance? Because in rural Georgia,
Well, that's exactly right. I know to pick up my daughter's prescription, I have 3 young girls. I'm blessed. I live in a community where I can use the Kroger, which is 3 miles down the road, or I can go into the next county and use the Kroger over there, which is 5 miles down the road, whichever is most convenient at the time. I would hate to think that somebody who is in need of this medicine, who has taken the time to register with the state of Georgia, has been approved by their doctor, and is now holding a card that says I'm eligible to take this, would have to drive for more than an hour one way and back to get the medicine that our state has said is law and that they can have.
Okay.
So I would like to see that within, my understanding, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean,
And would that be decided by the commission? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
yes, sir.
1 or 2 more. On line 506, page 20,
Yes.
dealing with the GBI and the medical board. And my question is, should the shall be a may? Because if we're getting them the duty to investigate, perhaps there's an investigation that already the medical board has made a decision on that the GBI doesn't have to bring them in because there's already maybe a definition or a situation. Why shall instead of may? I
Well,
guess?
the GBI was okay with that.
Okay.
I think if they had wanted may, they would have let me know. They did let me know that they wanted to change, they wanted to strike ensure. And I told them I would honor that request. And that was the only request they had. So I believe if they had wanted the shall to be a may, they would have asked me that as well.
Last one. I
Yes, sir.
promise. Page 26, line 651. Do we define proper identification? Is that through the company or is that something that is mentioned somewhere?
Well, I would imagine, well, each company is going to have their employees ID'd. I mean, they've got to be able, in House Bill 324, we had set out that there were certain restrictions of employees that could be hired. So I would imagine,
Would we want to add in there from the company they're employed, contracted by? I don't know, but that's just my last suggestion.
I am completely fine with that. I mean, it's as tight as we can make it and as legitimate as we can make it. Let's do it. I mean, let's not have to come back every year and do something. But no, I think we can go. I think that's okay.
Thank you. That's all, Chair.
All right.
Chairman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I think you've done a good job talking about giving an overview, a lengthy overview of this cleanup bill. I just want to go back to your opening statements about
Yes, sir.
products where we are stepping in there and adding and products. You clarified in your remarks, to the best of your knowledge, this means no additional products like edibles and things that
Absolutely.
you described. But I was just wondering if legislative council could weigh in on that. Is this word products pointing back to the original legislation's definition of products? If so, I'm fine with it. Could I ask that question of the ledge council or the chairman to have to?
Product is defined on lines 51 through 54.
I'm sorry, I didn't. So it was in this. Thank you for pointing that out. That's the question I wanted answered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, this is my only question. Page 29, when we're talking about the reporting, we're talking about the institutionals. Would we want to have it where it doesn't say what they have to do with the results? Would we want to make it where they have to report the results back to the commission, or maybe all licensees, so it's fair of what they're investigating? What do we want them to do with the results?
Well, here's what I would want them to do with the results. If a licensee of this state who's looking to produce this medicine for Georgia citizens goes and partners with a university, I believe that's a private contract that goes back and forth. I want them to remit those results back to that company and say, here's what we found on the product you're either about to make or what your product does for this particular eligible diagnosis. But I would imagine that would be subject to open records. But I wouldn't put any undue burden on the school and saying, well, we have to release it here. We've got to put it, if somebody wants to do it, they can present an open records request, I would imagine.
All right, thank you.
You good?
Yes, sir. Yes, Chair.
All right. I don't see any more questions.
Thank you, Mr.
And I
Chairman.
apologize to the committee that we bypassed the subcommittee because I thought this was going to be a pretty simple bill, but I didn't know we were going to be pressed for time today. Now, for the committee members, if you feel comfortable, I'll entertain a motion. If you don't feel comfortable and you want it late, we have a meeting tomorrow at 1:30. If you want to take this and rest your head on it tonight and try some low cannabis, low THC and see what works for you. You might have some other ideas that you might order and questions. I have concerns. When we worked on this issue a few years ago, we certainly thought they'd be up and going by now.
It will be 3 years, sir. Yes, sir.
It's been a long time. So, Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Chairman, again, and I've had many discussions with the author of the bill along these lines. I'm generally not in favor of certainly any kind of expansion. And if he satisfied me based on this definition, it is just a cleanup bill based on his good presentation. So as much as I'm uncomfortable with the whole process, I don't have a problem with this particular bill, and I move do pass.
All right. Well, we've got some other questions first. Number 16, Mr. Carpenter.
I was just going to concur with the chairman on this. You know, we passed this bill with the caveat that we were trying to help the people of Georgia get the necessary medicine that they needed. And I agree. I've been really frustrated with this process as well. A lot of folks went out on a limb to get this legislation passed, and unfortunately, we're not seeing it move. So I think this bill needs to move a whole lot quicker than that commission for sure. So we appreciate you.
Do we think this bill, if we pass this bill on forward today instead of tomorrow, do we think that might inspire y'all to get moving and see if you can't chunk these folks to get them to get these licensings cut and get things underway?
The conversations that I've had with the executive director and some of the commission members, they are ready to go.
Amen. Well, given that Chairman Williamson has agreed that it's a good bill, and I understand they might start making some high dollar wine out of this stuff at some point. So that being said, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any questions from any of the committee members? Any comments, any concerns? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Nays? And the ayes clearly have it. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right. I apologize to the committee. I know we're running late today, and I didn't mean to, this thing's going to be so drug out. My question, y'all, we have a meeting at 1:30 tomorrow, and we can go right on through tonight, or we can pick up the other bills tomorrow. But we've got one, Ms. Dempsey has got a relatively short bill to handle, and Chairman Collins has got one, but you'll be here tomorrow, won't you? 1:30. So yours and mine may be holdovers till tomorrow. Ms. Dempsey, would you please come up? Chair Lady Dempsey, I stand corrected.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate you taking the time to hear this bill. This is an effort to make sure of the licensure of individuals and the practice of applied behavior analysis, and also to create the Georgia Behavior Analyst Licensing Board. This is a consumer protection measure. Today, there is a National Behavior Analyst Certification Board, which is a credentialing process, but there is not oversight to allow for protections in our state. And private for-profit providers are moving into Georgia and establishing businesses, and this would give that consumer particularly greater protections. It is often used to help individuals with autism, geriatric, traumatic brain injury, and developmental disabilities. So protection for some of the people who are most susceptible to abuse and to be misled as well. This measure will need to go before GORC. So we're asking for movement on it now so that we continue to work on that over the interim and seek the approval and be back by next session to do it. The subcommittee had one change, and I will direct you to it. It's on, subcommittee, excuse me, the substitute. It is on page 6, line 135 and 136, and it was to increase the standards for education to make that very clear that it is a master's degree on applied behavior, analysis. 33 other states have this, so we are not unique. We might be a little behind, actually, on trying to establish the practice of applied behavior analysis as a distinct profession requiring distinct training and competencies, and that is what this measure will seek to establish.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, as the good chair lady has said, this bill, since it is a licensing bill, will have to go in front of GORP. As the chairman of the committee, I'm willing to go ahead and forward it on unless any of the committee members have any objections to that. What I would ask you to do is look at this bill till tomorrow If you have any language in the substitute you think needs to be changed that I will forward to Gorp, then if you would, let us know.
That's
Quick
great.
enough?
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Billy, you want the nursing bill to come up. Does that mean that you won't be here tomorrow? Well, it's a good bill, but Chairman Collins has a bill. What's the movement of the committee? All right, Chairman Collins. All right. House Bill 364.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you House Bill 364. I'm working off LC 392953S. This bill was heard in subcommittee, I believe it was last week. And basically what the guts of the bill was doing at the time was it was allowing those certified peace officers or public safety officers who were post-certified to turn in their post-certification and not have to get fingerprinted. There were two sets of fingerprints. If you're not a post-certified officer, or if you are currently in statute, you have to submit for those fingerprints. Well, redundancy. I felt like I have several constituents that have reached out to me that are having to jump through these hoops with the Secretary of State's office. If you're certified as a post officer in Georgia, you already have to be fingerprinted. You have arrest powers. You can take a part-time job with a third party and work as a security guard. Mostly, it's been my understanding that you have to basically have a letter of authorization from your police department or sheriff's office. So the bill originally was just to allow those peace officers to show proof of their post-certification and not have to be fingerprinted. As the bill worked through committee, I missed a couple of emails from some of the folks who asked for this bill. And I wanted to take this bill a step further. So I asked the rules chairman if he would recommit it back to this committee to be perfected. We all know that Chairman Powell wants good, fast legislation that's been vetted with that lightning bolt speed and durability. So I got with the chairman, got this bill back before you today. And basically a couple of other changes that you can see in the bill along lines 20 through 25. So what we're doing is those officers who want to work for a security company, they can go to work for the security company immediately, and we're going to allow them 60 days to become licensed by the Secretary of State's office. Again, these are people who currently have arrest powers working as peace officers in our state. If they want to go to work for a third-party security company, they can do that. They still have to have the license in place, but it gives them 60 days to do so. I have a company in my district that employed 1,800 people last year. So these security companies are providing jobs, and they're above board. They have to have bonding, licensing. They operate within the bounds of the Secretary of State's office. They're also insured. So that adds another component of credibility and accountability. And if you'll look through the bill again, it's on lines 60 through 64. It talks about, again, the requirements for the Peace Officers Standard and Training Council. So, Mr. Chairman, that's essentially the reason for I bring this legislation and the reason I made those changes. I hope the committee would look favorably upon these changes. And if you want to study it overnight and need to and come back tomorrow, I'll be glad to make any changes to pacify those members of this committee.
Carpenter.
Proper time, move to pass. I appreciate the change in the
Another
legislation.
question over here. Yes, sir.
Chairman, sorry I didn't ask this during subcommittee, but just, it's a great bill. Totally supportive of it. Just during the training council, do they get fingerprinted?
Yes, they do.
Okay, that
Yes.
helps.
All right, any further questions from any of the committee members? Gosh, y'all are getting ready for cocktail hour. All right, Mr. Carpenter has made a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any further questions, comments, or dialogue from the committee? If not, all in favor say aye. And the ayes have it for the second time, and it's back in rules again. All right. Thank you, Chairman. Good bill. All right, I'm gonna bring up House Bill 369. And if you and Juliana, and if y'all can go to the podium, I'm gonna let y'all clean up some of my description of this bill. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all may remember that this is a bill that subcommittee heard. We've had a couple of bills that's been brought forth. One would allow, and y'all may remember that that last year, this committee, as y'all, some of y'all who are on the committee knew that we have delved and been appointed other issues since we are regulated industries and we are known as the lightning bolt committee, that we are fresh sets of eyes on things that get bogged down in other areas. Last year, we did some bills for the APRNs and the PAs working under doctors' protocols. It had taken years to get it done, but I will assure you that no good deed comes unpunished because Juliana has been camped out in my office this year. So what we've got is a bill, two bills in front of you. The bill we're going to deal with right now is House Bill 369 by substitute 8727S. This is a bill, thank God for good friends like Chairman Jaspers, who helped steer this bill through the subcommittee. And they worked on this bill, but this bill, ladies and gentlemen, it would allow APRNs and physician's assistants to prescribe Schedule II drugs for a period of 5 days. And I think if you look on, on the APRNs, you will find that on Section 3. And you'll find the language for the physician's assistant starts on Section 5, Section 4. Since there are two different licensees and their credentials, but they're both basically the same. But it would allow them under that doctor's protocol that they can do emergency prescriptions of up to 5 days of Schedule II drugs. The physicians would have to run it through the normal process of the composite board. If they do not, if the composite board does not get to it in 10 days, then it will have been deemed accepted to that doctor. It also says, out of an abundance of precaution, that both APRNs and the docs, they have to report the issuance of such Schedule II drugs within 72 hours. Remember, this is under the doctor's protocol. You know, I continue to say what I said last year, all the anxiety and the such, these are well-skilled professionals. Still, we all understand that water runs downhill. Somebody's got to be at the top of the fountain, and that would be the doc, and they'd be responsible for the actions of their APRNs and PAs. Now, did I describe that pretty good?
You did very well, Mr. Chairman.
Very
The
good.
only other thing that the bill does is it allows us to write for disability placards as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did leave that out. That was part of the a part that came out of 430. 430, and I'll get into that bill in a minute. But we've shifted that to allow both the PAs and APRNs to issue the documentation for handicap placards. All right. Would either of y'all like to say a word if I didn't stumble through that correctly?
I'm happy to say a couple words if you'd like, but I think you did a lovely job, so it's up to
Thank you.
you.
Julianne, do you want to say anything?
I think you covered it. As you emphasized, even last year, just to remind them that we do have a protocol agreement for APRNs and then also with PAs with their job description that falls under the supervising physician. So if the supervising physician, they must approve adding this authorization to the protocol. So
Correct.
it's still the physician's final call.
And the only other thing I would add is about 45 plus other states allow these two mid-level practitioners to prescribe. There's a study from the Marcatus group at a George Mason University that believes what I have found with my PAs is that there's a significant cost savings to state programs, because right now folks will go into their urgent care and there may not be a doctor, because as you guys all know, there's not necessarily a physician, a primary care doctor or doctor in every community. And so they're relying on these practitioners to take care of your citizens. And so they may come in for things like a kidney stone, or for not a broken bone that needs surgery, but for a broken bone but for a splint and some pain medicine, they could be sent home. And so they're going to an urgent care, and then they're having to send them to the emergency room at a much higher cost to the system. They're waiting for medication for the sole purpose of just getting medication. So we think this bill is really going to help that situation. It's certainly going to help in rural Georgia, and it's going to help alleviate pain for Georgia citizens now.
He's not.
Could I say that I actually had last year, my husband
Chef
had a
Breed
kidney
Love.
stone, and we
Breed
went
Love.
to an urgent care
Then you put him up
in
over
Sugar
there.
Hill. And he was in so much pain, he was actually crying. And when he got there, it was a PA, so the PA was actually able to do a CT scan and said, yes, you do have a kidney stone, and said, it should pass maybe over the weekend. And he said, but I can't stand the pain. So he said, you have to go to the emergency room. So we had to go all the way over to Johns Creek, spent 8 hours at the emergency room just so he could get just enough pain medicine, not Schedule II, to get through the weekend. But if this had been in effect, then that PA could have written just a prescription for enough for no more than a 5-day supply to get him through the weekend. So
And if the Cannabis Commission had already moved forward, then they could have had a little something else they could have used. All right, ladies and gentlemen, y'all know what's in the bill. Now, we do have I have someone on Zoom, Jeff Breedlove.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Let's see. Mr. Breedlove,
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm here.
I am here. Glad you are too. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Apologize for not being there in person and appreciate the opportunity to make some comments on this important legislation. And it does always disappoint me to be on the opposite side of my good friend Julianne. What we do at the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, who I'm representing today, and I'm a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder, we have some concerns on Section 3 of this bill with what was just being referenced. Our main concern begins with an apology. My apologies to the chairman for not being more engaged in this on the front end. But there are well over 40 organizations that have concerns about this, and I have the privilege to speak on their behalfs. The concept of expanding access to prescribing what is in essence opioids and that type of thing is of concern. We understand about 5 days and all of that. We respect the nurses. We respect the intent behind this bill. But the recovery community, who is a key stakeholder in this, 800,000 people in Georgia, many thousands active every day in this cause, we've not been a part of the dialogue. And we would hope that on the reputation of the chairman, if this moves out of his committee today, that we could engage before final passage in the House and allow some other views and concerns to be vetted. We have no disparaging remarks about our great nurses or about the intent of the bill. It's just that a key group of stakeholders just simply have not had input on this bill. And it's my opportunity to speak on their behalf and say that we would hope to get some more perspective in before the final passage, sir.
All right. Well, I think you spoke the reputation of this chairman, and I don't know what that's worth, but I'll tell you what I do. And I don't understand why the stakeholders haven't been present, because this was heard in the subcommittee last week. But out of an abundance of precaution, and I certainly have no problem with hearing from your stakeholders, we'll have a meeting at 1:30 tomorrow, and they're more than welcome to be here in person or to be here on Zoom. And I'd like to hear what their concerns are. I mean, I can understand the issue with the people you're talking about, with a lot of the problems that we've seen around these drugs over the years. We've tried to draw this as factual as we could so that both licensed APRNs and PAs, that under that doctor's protocol, that he has to submit the protocol to the composite board for approval, and then they can prescribe up to 5 days max, and then report within 72 hours. I mean, I don't know. It's my understanding, and we hadn't got the ARP in some of those groups, but I understand that this is being highly touted by a lot of the consumer groups, as far as, quite frankly, given the shortage of medical staffers today more than any, of a way of, providing services to folks. I understand, and I may be wrong, but that I understand that this type of protocol agreement, that it's acceptable in an awful lot of states. And I understand in all the surrounding states in Georgia, which is a benefit to the consumers. But out of due respect and caution for your people, if they'd like to testify, then I'll hold this bill over till tomorrow at the 1:30 meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say that I would be their representative, and I wouldn't ask you to hold your bill over. What I would say is we respect the reality here. And I think that's why I said concerns, not opposition. It's not that we doubt the motive or the intent or the integrity of anybody in the process, especially the nurses and Julianne in particular. It's just that we would like, as the bill moves forward in the House, to maybe engage. So I would not ask the chairman today to delay his bill for us. We would just like to engage.
Thank you so much, and I do appreciate that. I will tell you that, yes, this is open game. Once it moves forward, there's a lot of parts in this that could be tightened up more, or maybe not. I know that there's other language in House Bill 430 that allowed for prescribing home health services. And I understand that maybe that's not the end of the world, even though that we just didn't have time to get into the weeds to be sure that there wasn't, other problems. But I know that, and I've recommended it, if they want to take it to the lower body over there to see what they can do, they need something to do over there anyway. That maybe they'll investigate it, and if they send it back or whatever the progress is on this will be a work in progress. And if you have something to add at the proper time, we'd be more than thrilled.
Well, I know that, sir, and I thank you, sir, so much, and appreciate the time of the committee and yourself today, and just appreciate and apologize one more time. Trying to show respect during COVID and not be down there like we were in the old days, and sometimes you miss one, and I own that.
I appreciate it. There's a lot of things that we need to apologize for, but that certainly isn't one of them.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
What is it?
Letters of support, look for the ARP here in the packet.
We do have letters of support from the ARP and Georgia Association of Physicians Assistants.
There's a couple of all in the packets.
We got all kind of stuff here. Yeah, I think we know enough about it. What's the will of the committee? We have a motion. We have a second. Do we have any other questions from any of the members? No? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed likewise. Now, in relation to House Bill 430, we've taken the placards for the handicapped out of 430 and moved them over into 369. The body of 430 would require us to go in front of GORP, just like Chairman Dempsey's bill. They did have an issue in there, a couple other issues that was in that bill. One of was prescriptive rights for home health services, which, is going to be scrutinized and all of that. The other was obtaining certain information on licensees, something that I didn't realize was a common practice. It wasn't something that made me feel warm and sexy about, but But I come to find out they do this in a lot of other medical licensing functions, so they can find out who's on first, who's on second, who works where. So that being said, we will take up 4:30 tomorrow at 1:30. I would tell you that it's going to be a very short meeting tomorrow, unless we add some things to the calendar tomorrow. Is there any other questions, any other issues in front of the committee members? I want to thank y'all all. It was a long day today. And I appreciate your work as a committee. If not, this meeting's adjourned. And thank you, Billy. I appreciate you being